Now, the time that you've been waiting for the vegetarians around the world. Oh, let's get ready to protein. Great.
Hey, Wade, what's up, man?
You know, we're excited. Probably the greatest Bioptimizer event, certainly in our long and storied career, from my perspective, is the release of Protein Breakthrough version 4.0, which has literally been 17 years in the making. And, you know, as a guy that is completely, absolutely 100% reliant on plant-based proteins in order to exist on this planet, and let alone, you know, continue on with my fitness goals and stuff as an old ex-bodybuilding geezer that I am. I mean, I've never been more pumped about a product in my career in fitness and health and nutrition.
So let's start in the beginning, right? So first, when you and I met, you know, then I moved to Vancouver, we were hanging out. You followed probably the most regimented, strict, restrictive diet I have ever seen, period. Why don't you mention and describe what you ate on a daily basis for 11 months?
Yeah, you know, that was in the 2003, and I just was on a conversation with the famous pro bodybuilder Ben Pekulski, and he asked me that same question. Because we had a same common element, had the same coach. It's kind of very similar career. Obviously, he did much better, but it was an interesting etymology. And yeah, I ate, this is exactly what I had. Because we were trying to do a meat-eating mentality to a vegetarian diet, and at that time there was no plant protein, so we had to, you know, use whey. So that didn't make me a vegan, it made me a lacto-vegetarian, to be technical. I had 50 grams of whey every meal for 5 meals of the day. Meal 1, I had that with 2 shredded wheat biscuits. Meal 2, I had it with 25 mini rice cakes. Meal 3, I had 2 medium potatoes. In meal number 4, I had 25 mini rice cakes. And meal number 5, I had a small salad to go with that with just vinegar on it and salt. And I ate that way every day for 11 months and stayed in, you know, I won a national championship in July of that year, starting in January, and maintained a bodybuilding conditioning level from that point in July, actually earlier than that, because I won a contest in May prior to that. From May to November, 6 straight months in contest conditioning, eating that many calories, training at a professional bodybuilder level with no drugs, no meat, nothing. That's what it was. And you saw what I was like at that point. I mean,
Wade was pretty much brain dead. He would walk in the gym and, you know, I could tell there was no one home, and I'd say, Wade, how's it going? I'd say, hey man, it's just another day in paradise, bro. And he'd go about his day, train like a maniac all the time. You were hyper focused. I mean, you seemed like the Terminator. I mean, it's probably the best description of an avatar you had. It was just focused, do what it takes, and no one really home. You just did the work and followed the regimen.
Well, you know, that's, I think, something, though, that you and I both share as founders of the company, in that, you know, willpower can only go so far, and discipline is not something that comes natural to you and I. However, where we are, I think, hyper gifted or cursed, you might look at it, is that we're so mission centered. Mm-hmm. And both you and I came about this industry, I think, through a very natural and benevolent way, is that as personal trainers and educators, we fell in love with transforming people's lives one-on-one and seeing the difference and the carryover of that. And then our lives changed after that with Dr. O'Brien. We'll get into that. But you and I remember specifically sitting down there that we made a commitment to this mission of ending physical suffering and activating awesome health, or from sickness to superhuman, as some people would like to say. We've kind of sophisticated and tightened up that message over the last 20 years. But Jocko Willink talks about it. You know, what drives the Navy SEALs is their commitment to the mission, no matter what, even if that results in your death. And I think where the common element that we both have is that we've shared that. And when we made our first product, which we were told was insane because it cost too much money, we'd never make any profit from it. We just said, we don't care. We're a mission-based company, not a margin-based company. And that changes the whole culture. And that made the rise of the company much slower and more pedestrian, but much more solid and sustainable. And now that it's years later and we've got this, we're recognized as a brand, and the company mission statement is inside of our web development, it's inside our customer service, it's inside our operations, our marketing, virtually everything that we do, everything that we encourage. And it's just an awesome thing to be mission driven. And, you know, to be mission driven, there's consequences to it, but there's also benefits. And I think the Purpose Driven Life, I think was a book that's very famous in truck stops around America. It kind of indicates of the journey is far greater than the destination.
Yeah, and PB is no different. It's actually our most expensive. We keep actually almost every product we've released the last little bit is progressively more expensive than the last, just because we just go all in. But let's regress back to 11 months. What were the consequences of eating whey at that quantity?
Well, you know, it's funny because I just got off the phone with Ben Pekulski, who was friends of ours, who took his body to, as a professional bodybuilder, like 270, 300 pounds or whatever at its peak. And he said there's a common element that happens when you are trying to, I would say, usurp genetics, usurp evolution, because bodybuilding is the antithesis to evolutionary biology. You're trying to increase the muscle mass. You're trying to exercise in a way that stresses muscles more than stresses the system. You're trying to strip your body fat levels to, you know, levels beyond what's even healthy or functional. It is the antithesis to evolutionary components, which is ironic because it's seen as the cosmetic ideal in the world. That's a whole other story. So the consequences was, and I didn't understand this because we didn't understand the digestive system. We didn't understand that the limitation, if your training and exercise program is working, is, in other words, you're creating a right around stimulus, you want to recover, you've got to convert the protein you're consuming. You got to digest it, you got to absorb it, you got to utilize it or transport it into the tissues that you've stimulated. And the limiting factor that happens in professional bodybuilding, and certainly at the level I wasn't using drugs or anything, is that your digestive capabilities is the limiting factor. You can't get the trucks to the site, right? You can't deliver it to the muscles, and that limits your recovery. And so I'm pounding all this protein in hopes that this is going to aid in my recovery. But what really is going on is a sickly layer of black, dark, rotting sludge is starting to build up on my intestinal lining that I'm not aware of. And this is feeding the bad bacteria. And one of the reasons I'm feeling brain dead is because, unbeknownst to me, I've got a host of these bad bacteria, which everybody has to a certain extent, that is feeding on the undigested proteins and polluting my blood system and offsetting my neurochemistry. So I'm a walking zombie because the bad guys have taken over my brain. And I'm just in a war with the bad guys in my head every day. And just like a guy that's a Navy SEAL that's down behind any lines, he just keeps going. I'm just going to keep going because the mission. And then after that, when the mission got over and I, you know, came back to reality, my whole body just shut down. I gained 42 pounds of fat and water in 11 weeks. I went from Mr. Universe to Mr. Marshmallow. I mean, I didn't look like a national champion. I looked like the Stay Puffed Marshmallow Man. And, you know, and it was so devastating for me psychologically. Keep in mind, I had 16 years of training. I've got the best coach in the world. I've got a bunch of people of who's who in Vancouver who are following me as an education. I get to the pinnacle of cosmetic idealness at the time. And 3 months later, I look like, a sack of crap. And it's like, it made me question everything I thought I knew about training and diet. And, of course, the frustration led to discovery. And so anybody that's frustrated, I think there's an opportunity side. I always say that your greatest challenge in life is divinity's inspiration to find a greater capability or unlocked potential within inside you if you're willing to fight through it. And that's when Dr. Brian came into our lives.
A couple key things you said that I want to hammer home. One is, when we talk about the process of nutrification, which is in our book called the Biological Optimization Blueprint. The first one, which we focused on with Masszymes, is breaking down the food, the macros into usable components. And, amylase breaks carbs down into glycogen. The proteolytic enzymes broke down protein to amino acids, and the lipases break down the fats to essential fatty acids. And the second piece, again, is transporting through the intestinal tract. And you want to have a healthy intestinal tract. Now, here's the good news. And by the way, we have a research team in Bosnia that is literally PhDs in this topic, in the topic of biofilm. And, if you're eating the wrong things and you're feeding the bad guys like Whey was describing, they will colonize into your intestinal tract and they'll produce whatever chemicals or byproducts that they do. And some of them sometimes are bad. The other problem too, potentially, is a leaky gut, which, if you're not eating a good diet, can happen. And now you're absorbing toxins, which can create an inflammatory response. But the third thing, which, is one of the reasons we're so big on enzymes, is the assimilation, right? So, okay, you broke down the protein to amino acids. You transported the amino acids through the intestinal tract, which we use ingredients like astrazyme to help transport more through the intestinal tract, up to 66% more aminos, which is awesome. But that last phase where amino acids become lean body mass, or they, become neurochemicals, or they become tissues for the body, you need enzymes. The enzymes are constantly converting one thing into another, 25,000 different functions. And as we talk about your journey, your protein journey today, I think that we can't have that conversation without talking about Masszymes. So maybe, then let's talk about Michael O'Brien, because that's really where that awareness came from, and talk about your journey using Masszymes as a vegetarian bodybuilder, because that was the first really big game changer.
Yeah. So what happened when we met Dr. Brian? First and foremost, he was everything that you would hope to be as a senior citizen. He was probably in his 70s at the time, late 70s at the time. He was super vibrant. He gave us a whole entire lecture and never ate anything during the entire 10-hour output lecture, which was amazing. And he was so sharp and vibrant and lively and active. You're like, well, that's what I want to be like.
Yeah.
I want to be like him when I'm so. Yeah, he had what we wanted. It was very clear. He had stuff that we had never seen before. Let's be frank. I mean, he was a remarkable, unique individual that transformed not only our lives, but thousands of the influencers who are still alive and today and running companies and things like that. He was a miracle worker in a lot of ways, and I have the utmost respect to him. But in his lecture, he presented to me some concepts that flew in the face of everything that we saw in bodybuilding. In fact, I had gone to a lecture of his, a brief lecture, as I was preparing for the Mr. Universe. And I remember going to that, and he introduced these ideas, and it made sense logically, but the problem was it was fighting against kind of the bodybuilding, nutrition, psychological industry and the themes and memes and strategies that were embedded into that culture. So I was fighting a psychological culture as well as just being open enough to hear the science. But once I had screwed myself up, right, what do I have to lose? I'm sitting here as a fat marshmallow. right? Going, God, what happened? Right? So that was the opening that could set my ego aside enough to recognize there's something I don't know here, because the results are the results. I mean, here's the results. So he said, look, it's not, he said something to me. I went to him, I told him my story. You know, I got the best coaching, all that sort of stuff. He's like, wait, you learned to build the body from the outside in. I'm going to teach you how to build the body from the inside out. And he introduced to us a concept by a guy by the name of Dr. Edward Howe, the godfather of enzymatic research, who took the famous Pottinger's cat studies done in the 30s about what happened to cats when you fed them an enzymatically deficient diet. And he applied it to like cats, rats, rabbits, dogs, all these sort of things, of what happens if you fed 3 different groups. If you fed a group enzymes, you fed one group of these animals no enzymes, you took enzymes out of the diet, and then the other you just put them on their regular diet. And what was happening is all of the enzymatically deficient animals, which is everybody today as humans, this is where the connection is. Humans today, we cook our food, we irradiate our food, we take all the enzymes. We have no enzymes in our food, basically, none, which is essential to life. Well, all of the animals by 3rd generation develop so weird sociological behaviors. In other words, the dogs didn't act like dogs, the cats didn't act like cats. They started changing their behavior. Second thing that happened is they started to develop an array of genetic-based diseases, to like an exponential growth of those. And then the third thing was they lost the ability to procreate. And he predicted in the 1940s and 50s, when major agricultural programs started to be implemented with the Industrial Revolution, particularly after the war and manufacturing and the empires, he predicted that in 3 generations, we were going to have the same problems as the 3rd generation cats, rabbits, dogs, etc. And guess what? Here we are. You see fertility rates crashing. You see exponential stuff of genetic, issues that are happening. And go on social media, and you're going to see a lot of strange sociological behavior. So that, I bought into the story, but now I've actually seen the story firsthand, because this was 20 years ago. And so I was like, okay, I'm going to try his enzymes. He had helped Bernard Jensen recover from cancer using this stuff. He had corrected cirrhosis of the liver and prostate cancer in himself. Pretty radical claims. And a bunch of other people had testimonials that were far out, and they were there in the room, and I believed them. They had no reason to lie about it. So I'm like, well, maybe it can fix my digestive issues. And so we did it. I went on a completely raw food diet. I will qualify that. I went from a milk eating, or a weight eating vegetarian, to a complete raw foodie that I didn't eat any cooked food. It follows. I felt better in 3 months, transformed my life. But in 6 months, I got my physique back, and we had started building our company at that time. And it was great. We felt great. But then, as we started coaching all these other people, there was one major problem that began to reveal itself. I was only eating a little bit of protein because there was no protein to eat in anything. Protein degradation in plant foods, significant.
Well, there's a couple of key points too, because I remember you going through this experimentation phase. You tried soy, you tried whey, like you were trying to find something that worked for you in terms of a protein. And the first big win, let's fast forward a bit, because this was kind of really the first breakthrough in protein breakthrough, was using hemp protein. And for the people that don't know, again, hemp is the seed that comes from the male plant. And arguably, hemp protein is the world's, or hemp seeds is as close as you can get to a perfect food. Essential fatty acids, fiber, polyphenols, the amino acid profile is amazing. It's a beautiful, beautiful food. And you started pounding a lot of it. So maybe talk about that, because I remember when we were just going crazy with hemp protein, and it was a game changer.
Yeah. So one of the things, because Dr. OBrien was primarily focused on helping sick people heal. He wasn't a performance-based guy. And so I could clean out my system, which I did on his program. I got really healthy, but I noticed I couldn't recover. And that's why we were trying these programs. I couldn't get it. Now I had the trucks with the enzymes and the probiotics and things we're doing in the digestive system. I just didn't have any boxes to load on the trucks. I didn't have enough protein because they hadn't coached people that were training at the level that I was comfortable with. And I started to see a loss in muscle tone. And I started to see that I couldn't recover at the same speed. And now although I'm healthier, I'm now losing my performance-based goals. So fortunately, we knew some people in the hemp industry, because Vancouver, Canada at the time was a hotbed of understanding hemp. We were way ahead. They were way ahead in the pot market, and they were way ahead in the hemp market. And it turned out that we knew the godfather of hemp protein, who actually created the machine that developed the nozzle that allowed the breaking of the seed and the converting it into a powder that you could now extract into a protein supplement. There was a problem. Great breakthrough, but the problem was hemp protein, well, it smelled like a barn and it tasted like dirt. Mm-hmm. But as a champion mindset that I had, who cares? I'll eat dirt. I don't care how it smells. I don't care that it feels like sandy gravel with barley going down my throat. I'm going to pay the price. And it worked. I got stronger. I could recover better. But, and we started sharing this with our athletes. We've coached I think it was over 15,000 guys worldwide over the next 4 years. There's a lot of people.
We were selling thousands and thousands and thousands of pounds of pure organic hemp protein, no flavor, no nothing. And again, only the most hardcore bodybuilders could go there, and they did. And it's
health freaks.
Health freak. Yeah, it stacked really well with Masszymes. It was a game changer. But talk about your next big discovery around plant-based proteins, because one thing that's central to Bioptimizers is one of our core values: test, learn, grow, evolve. We're always testing new things. And with the proteins, it was no exception. So what was the next big protein discovery that you're like, oh, this is awesome?
Well, one of the things that Dr. OBrien taught about us was using an aspect of rice protein called tocotrienols, which have some very strong anti-carcinogenic properties. And he made a product that was based on it that really tasted kind of magic, kind of like frog. It was really great. Mm-hmm. And so that was cool. And tocotrienols have a long history in health and healing and stuff. It's not something that's going to build a bunch of muscle. And then what happened is we were approached by some guys it's a famous brand that was doing rice protein, and they were doing fermented rice. But now let's qualify something. There's rice protein, and then there's fermented rice protein. And there's a big difference between the two. And these guys came out with a great product. It was a fermented rice protein. It tasted better and had a high protein content. And it kind of took off, and I started using it. But they ran into a problem of scale. In other words, the brand got popular, and they couldn't get the same quality of fermented rice bran proteins into the protein, and they had to switch suppliers, like happens with a lot of companies. Mm-hmm. They went to a cheap organization outside of the United States, and they lost control of the quality management, and the product started to sit in your stomach like cement. And I'm like, I'm back to the whey protein problem. See, there was a feeling that
you're hitting a key point, Wade, right? Which is, let's talk about just the paying attention, the simple, free, available biofeedback that comes after eating a meal. Because we were both born in Moncton, New Brunswick, and in that area, the acid test for a great restaurant was, I couldn't finish my meal. And you've got this, what feels like 2 pounds of cement in your gut feeling. And a lot of people think that that's normal. And I think as you build great digestive health and you eat really good food, you become clear that's not the case. and boom, you were back to feeling that cement-like feeling. So talk about that, because I think it's a really valuable point.
Yeah. So there's a common element, and I noticed, I'll go back even further because I grew up a carnivore, like, we ate meat at every meal. And when you have a high meat meal, there's a satiety factor that you don't get. Like that's different than other meals. There's a fullness feeling. And there's a pleasantly full, and then there's an unpleasantly full. When I switched to when I switched over to the whey protein, there was not the same level of feeling, but there was a nuance to it. There was a fullness, not like meat, but it felt like, okay, I got enough protein in my gut. When I went to a raw food diet, I felt now I don't have any of those fullness feelings. And I almost feel that I'm on the depleted side. Like I'm not getting enough, and I have this sense that I'm not getting enough protein.
And let's and what happens a lot, we saw it because we used to be pretty integrated with the raw food community. I mean, most male guys will lose 15 to 20 pounds of lean body mass in 6 months of going raw because they're just so amino acid deficient. You were an exception, of course, because you knew how to hack that.
Yeah, and I became popular in that community because they kind of wheeled me out as the raw food star that could actually be kind of like the poster boy for the vigilante vegans, say that you could build muscle on a raw food diet. And so I went through a whole traction, and people started hating me in that community. I wasn't a vigilante, but people, the social media, all that whole veganism crap and all that.
Vigilantes wanted you to be vigilante.
Yeah. They wanted to wheel me out so I would take on like the carnivore guys in some like UFC battle or something. But anyways, that's just tribalism, and that's a whole topic that we'll get into our next book coming out next year about that and the dangers of that and why it's so pervasive today in the world and how that sets you up for failure. But so I went going back to the fullness feeling. So in the hemp protein, you kind of get to a certain amount, and because of the insoluble fiber, then you're just having like what we call power dumps. Like you're going into, like you're walking away from the toilet going, wow, that was amazing. Like let's face facts. We all know is there any better feeling in life? Honestly, let's just go here for a second. Than walking away from the toilet after you've dropped a really big bomb in there and looking at that. There's a kind of a sense of pride, and there's kind of a sense of, if that's off, something wrong, and if it's on, something's right.
Yeah, beautiful bowel movements. I think it's something everybody appreciates. And with protein breakthrough, even the earlier versions, which we'll get to in a minute, people have always told me personally, man, best bowel movements ever.
Yeah. Now, so then I realized that we have problems with rice bran and fermented stuff. It's not balanced. It doesn't have enough fiber. And anytime in any plant protein, and I think this is one of the dangers also, if you can maybe expand on that, with carnivore diet or ketogenic diet, if you have too much protein and not enough fiber, this seems to be an issue. You get constipated, or you don't feel quite, or you don't have regular movements. And so you need the right amount of protein balanced by the right amount of fiber. And what I felt was happening in the whole rice bran program, or the high level, which had a high amino acid content, but it wasn't designed. It was too sticky. It was too clumpy. And that clumpiness was happening inside my guts, and it wasn't feeling good. So we went back to, and then I started trying to mix it with hemp. And the problem with that is now we've got the barn taste again. We're back to the barn because hemp is such an overpowering flavor. It's so strong, and it's like, okay, so now I tried everything. I tried pumpkin, I tried sunflower, I tried
let's talk about pumpkin.
Protein.
That's one of our favorites.
What's that?
Let's hit on pumpkin for a second. First of all, pumpkin seed is, a powerhouse nutrient wise. Zinc, many other key nutrients, right? For men, especially zinc is critical. It's critical for the immune system. That it was very clear when the whole COVID thing came out. And it tastes great too. I mean, I love the flavor of pumpkin seed protein. It's got a subtle little nutty flavor. It's not barn, it's not earth, it's not dirt. It's just nice, and it blends well with other things. So yeah, talk about your experience using pumpkin seed protein and how you felt on it.
Yeah, really, I felt it very smooth, but there was a weirdness that happened because I always take everything to an extreme. When I would get beyond, say, 50 grams in a given day, I started to notice I had a bit of an aversion. And I don't know why that is yet. I haven't figured that out. Maybe the imbalance of the beneficial components. Maybe I'm getting too much zinc or something. I don't know what it is. I probably have a great prostate because of it. But there's when you spend so much time in your own biological feedback, because we didn't have feedback mechanisms and rings and wires and headsets and data points. I was of the old school of self-observation, practicing meditation and awareness of my physiology. And I was trained that way by Scott, my former coach. And I always had that ability to kind of dial into myself. And now we encourage people to dial in the self in correlation with data, so you get cross confirmation of things. But like when I took too much pea, same thing. When I got past a certain level of pea protein, I felt a fullness that didn't feel right. And when I had too much pumpkin, I felt like I didn't want any more. I didn't want to eat protein. So I don't know what the mechanism is, but my body was saying, hey, that's too much of this. And so then, I even went off and tried Sachinichi Protein. Let's talk about that. I know I'm bouncing all over the place, but these are all the failed experiments. So Sachinichi Protein was a South American kind of nut thing, and it tastes a little bit almost like fish because of the way the essential fatty acids in it, and it tastes amazing. It feels great. I loved it. I started taking that, and I started pounding that. I always start a little bit, then I take a moderate amount, and then I go to, okay, what's the tolerable level here? And after about a week of pounding Sachinichi Protein, I start having explosive bowel movements, like something's wrong inside my digestion. Well, turns out years later, the research has indicated that high concentrations of Sachinichi protein in your diet causes bowel disruption, screws up your digestion. So that's a great tasting protein, feels good when you first start using it, and causes major problems down the road, right? So again, I'm stuck again, right? We're stuck again every time we run into a limitation with the proteins, with the amino acid profile, with the flavoring, with the clumping, with the not enough fiber, with too much concentrate, with the sticky. It just became this endless loop for years and years and years.
The Bioptimizer mission is to help more of the world fix their digestion at a core level. The truth is, your digestion is only as good as your enzyme levels. Imagine trying to build a house with a tree. It's impossible. You need to chop the tree down into small pieces. Similarly, in order for your food to be used by your body, it must be broken down into a bioavailable form. And that's what enzymes do, converting protein into amino acids, fats into specific fatty acids, and carbohydrates into usable energy units. We start out with an abundance of enzymes, and that's why kids can digest just about anything really quickly. The thing is cooking food kills enzymes, as they cannot survive at temperatures above 118 degrees. So years of this ends up depleting our bodies and leads to weak digestion. Taking digestive enzymes like masszymes, which has an incredibly high level of protease for digesting protein, as well as other critical enzymes like lipase, amylase, and others, is a total game changer. Suddenly, you strengthen your digestion, eliminate gas and bloating, boost metabolism, and multiply your energy. Most importantly, you fix your digestion at a core level. To get started with Masszymes and to save 10% on your first order, go to masszymes.com. That's MASSZYMES.com and use the code MASSZYMES. 10, MASS10.
Let's go right to the breakthrough. The breakthrough was blending the three in the perfect ratios so that we get the protein, the amino acids from the pea, we get the fiber from the hemp, we get the nutrients from the pumpkin, again, in the right ratios, which took us about 145 attempts. But let me say another key point. So I'm usually the guy who tries all the raws. We tested, not only did we get the blend right, but finding the perfect vendors for every single one. Because, organic hemp protein, there's huge variance in flavor, in quality, in fineness. All of those things completely change the finished product. And, we spent years trying all of those. And it was a huge breakthrough. So that's breakthrough number one against that combination of the pumpkin, the pea, and the hemp. Let's jump to the second big breakthrough, which took us a while to figure out. So one of the things at Bioptimizers is we're really against low quality excipients. Most supplements use all kinds of.
Explain what an excipient is for people so they know what that is.
Yeah, it helps the machines flow, or in this case, when we talk about protein, it's emulsifiers. So it's a bit of a different thing, but we're as obsessed about all those, micronutrients or micromolecules that help either with texture or flavor or with flow rate, which is what excipients do. And we want the best of the best with everything. And
so we got excipients, and then we've got emulsifiers are the two things, because anytime that, whether it's whey protein, plant protein, whatever type of protein you need an emulsifier so that when it mixes up in the cup, it doesn't clump, it stays stable. You get a unified flavor in that whole component. This is food science.
Correct.
And I know you've dove deep into food science, and share with us some of the obstacles when it comes to emulsifiers on top of, the excipients.
So I literally spent months and months trying all the gums. And if you look at most labels, you'll see xanthan gum, guar gum, carrageenan. I don't know if I say that correctly. There's a few more. But those gums are all emulsifiers, and you'll see them in ice creams as well, because you need that, and sort of studying just all the different emulsifiers that were out there. And if you just, and a lot of bodybuilders will use a lot of xanthan gum to blow up the volume. So one of the problems with a lot of gums is they blow up. Like literally, that's what they do. So like a little bit of liquid becomes a massive amount of volume. But it's doing that in your gut, and you will feel that. If you just take a micro amount of xanthan gum and you throw that in a shake, you're going to get some of the bad feelings, bad biome feelings that we talked about earlier, which is problematic.
Well, let's talk about, I want to expand on that right now, because I think whoever's listening to this is going to understand this, is like, we've all made, could be a whey protein shake, a casein shake, you mix up this little shake with water and it looks pretty things. It tastes really sweet or really good. You gun it down, you go to the gym, you get 15 minutes into your workout, or maybe you did it after, and all of a sudden you got this bloated, distended feeling in your gut. Mm-hmm. And you're like, something's not right here. That's because of these gums, these things, these emulsifying expanders, if you will, which are actually, okay, it looks cool in the cup, but what happens when it gets in your gut? It's like pumping the Hindenburg into your belly. And I do believe, and there's a lot of controversy around hardcore bodybuilding, for example, and distended bellies. Yep. Now, if you look at the top pros, almost all of them stay away from shakes as they're preparing for contests. They use real food because they find they're convenient. But these gums, I believe, is what's also causing the intestinal bloating and the big bellies that are pervasive. And if you go back in the magazines to the 90s, didn't have the bloated bellies. Designer whey protein comes out. I know I'm using a name, but these and the cornucopia of brands that came out, you know, we can go into Scott Connolly stuff, metrics and all the different things, and the expansion of that market, which grew exponentially, which we witnessed firsthand, go hand in hand with the correlation of the bloated belly program. They're hand in hand that go together.
They do. So I settled on one key emulsifier. There's many, but the key one is sunflower lecithin, which is really a superfood. It's super rich in choline, which, you know, not going to get into the brain side, but really important molecule for focus. It's got some great essential fatty acids, and a lot of people just use sunflower lecithin as a supplement. But it's really an incredible emulsifier to combine the fats and the water. That's what an emulsifier does. You know, you're blending fats with water into a unified liquid. But there's a lot of other great compounds we use, like raw cacao. Now, the first protein flavor that's coming out is chocolate bliss.
Can I go back to sunflower lecithin a little bit? Because there's a historical aspect to this.
Awesome. Go for it.
So sunflower lecithin, if you look back in Arnold Schwarzenegger's Encyclopedia of Bodybuilding, when he was making the very first types of shakes that they started to experiment with, they added sunflower lecithin. But you can go back further. Who was the guy that came up with that? Well, it was associated with a guy by the name of Rio H. Blair, who was associated with the guy which was Vince Gironda, the first guy to show up at the Mr. Universe absolutely shredded. He was so shredded they didn't know what to do with him in the 1940s, and became the who's who de facto trainer of the Hollywood star set, which Larry Scott was a tutor, was under his, the first Mr. Olympia. And then Arnold Schwarzenegger started training at Vince Gironda's gym and learned about lecithin at that time as well, which was in the health food industry, California being an epicenter of that. And so he added that in there. So there is a long tradition, and sometimes really great things get forgotten and left aside because of manufacturing capabilities and the convenience of using these commercialized extracts, which will create a flavoring and a scalable result under a company, but may not give you the health result that the original components were done. Because we're always looking to get close to real food, right? Real things. The better we are, I think that's a big win. So I just want to throw that in there. Please unleash us, because of all the people I know, you're probably one of, well, we have a bunch of friends that are just chocolate-aholics. Let's just call it what it is. You guys are,
I consider myself
ridiculous
a
cacao fans.
Yeah, cacao connoisseur. You know, one of my favorite things to do is literally, I bought like a bunch of single bean bars. And even when I went to Peru, as an example, I was trying every region of cacao. And what's interesting about plants, you know, and tobacco is very similar with cigars, which I got into a few years back, is the soil, the minerals in the soil completely impacts the flavor. And of course the genes, right? So the genetics of the seed combined with the nutrients in the soil produce a certain flavor. And with cacaos, it's pretty shocking. You know, some cacaos are really fruity. Some are more smoky, earthy. Some are more astringent, bitter. There's a huge variance in flavors. And we spent a long time testing cacaos and testing cocos. And we found the perfect blend of cocos and cacaos, which was another breakthrough, which we can get into, so that it emulsifies. Because the cacao will tend to float. The cocoa is defatted, so it blends easier. But that combination, I think, hits way more notes in the taste buds. Your taste buds have all these different layers and different parts of the mouth. And our goal is to hit it all. So I'm a foodie. I love the science of food, and with the cacaos and the cocos and the other emulsifiers. So we use maca. Maca is an amazing adaptogen, which means that it helps
South
counter stress
American
in the body.
ginseng, a lot of people call it, because it grows at high altitude. It's got all these remarkable properties.
Yeah, I love
It's
maca.
pretty amazing.
Maca is really an amazing plant. Also grows in Peru. It's great when you go to Peru. You go to the airport, buy maca candy, and it's just readily available everywhere, which is awesome. But maca is amazing. So we got maca root. We've got mesquite, which is also kind of a naturally sweet, smoky plant. And again, it's loaded with iron, lysine, manganese, potassium, and zinc. And then we got lucuma. Now, lucuma, almost no one that I know has tried fresh lucuma. That also grows in Peru. It looks like an avocado. So it's got the similar shape, similar skin. And when you cut it, it's similar in the sense that you'll see a big round seed in the middle. But the color is caramel, and it tastes like caramel. It's like a sweet caramel avocado, similar texture. Again, they use it a lot for yogurts and stuff like that in Peru. So we used a bit of that as well. So that combination of the cacao, the sunflower lecithin, the mesquite, the cocoa, the lucuma, all blend together, and it emulsifies incredibly well without the gums. And it took us a long time to nail that. That was breakthrough number 2.
It was years.
It was years. It was literally years.
And half a dozen world-renowned chocolatiers, and we know the greatest sourcer of natural food products. And so and we won't reveal any names, but we know the people that actually go to the farms. It's been all over the world, that understands the sophistication of these nuances at an nth degree. And it still took us years to find this combination.
Yeah. Now let's get to the protein breakthrough number 3, which was the ultimate healthy sweetener blend. So being a keto guy since I'm 16, and I love sweets. I got a sweet tooth, born with it.
That's why you had to go keto, right?
Yeah, it was part of the solution for sure. And of course, I love tasty sweet treats once in a while, even on keto. So I've been using, artificial alternative sweeteners for a long, long time. And the first thing we wanted was something that was the healthiest sweeteners possible. And I know personally a lot of people that have run a lot of experiments on sweeteners. For example, xylitol is one of those sweeteners that's, considered an alternative sweeteners, but it will spike your blood sugar. So that was out. Normal sugar was out because of the glycemic effect. Sucralose and aspartame is one of those controversial ones where you got a group number 1 that says it doesn't matter, it doesn't affect you. And group number 2 says, well, aspartame's a neurotoxin, sucralose is problematic. So, there's been some interesting tests that have come out on the effects of those on gut biome, making them actually insulin resistant within a week. So those were out. So what we settled on as the primary sweeteners is 1, erythritol, and 2, monk fruit. Monk fruit is a fruit that grows in a very special place in China. It's very hard to grow outside of that. And it's amazing. It's got kind of a natural caramel flavor. And just another comment too on trying all these different sources of monk fruit. That was one of the craziest ones on variants. I'd say 80% of them tasted weird and chemically, and then we found some that just tasted amazing and tasted natural.
So that comes down also to not just growing, but what kind of
how are they processing
or non-chemicals are they using to extract it, how they process it, how they manufacture it, how they store it, the kind of facilities, what it's been subjected to. So just so people understand, when you're sourcing out ingredients, anything is when you can pick an ingredient, but the variance between the quality of that ingredient is exponential. So let's use stevia. That's another one. So
I was going to just say that.
So if you
stevia is probably even more so because
Yes.
Most people, so again, being Bioptimizers, we get people sending us, extracts all the time. The difference between a 98% stevia and a 99.6% stevia, it's not comparable. Like the bitterness, and most people that have tried stevia have only tried lower quality extracts that have really bitter aftertaste and notes. So finding the absolute finest stevia with no aftertaste, that took a long time. And let me go to one of the big revelations when it comes to sweeteners, and it has to do with how the palate works, is you want a synergistic blend of multiple sweeteners, especially when it comes to creating a really cohesive sweet flavor that hits the palate, no aftertaste, no weird notes, which again, you can get if you use too many of these, any one of these compounds. And then we use the microdose, about 1 gram per serving of coconut sugar, because it really helped balance and bring all the sweetness together. So synergy is the key. When you use multiple sweeteners, you're gonna need less of any one of them. And that's one of our big secrets, if you will, to forming products, including with Nutopia, is instead of using an extreme amount of any one thing, let's synergize, let's amplify, and we'll need less of it. So that was the third big breakthrough, why Protein Breakthrough is so epic. Go ahead.
But as they say in the cheesy 80s commercials, but there's more, because there's 2 other ingredients that you brought into this mix specifically in order to bring out the full flavor profile. And that's Himalayan salt and organic vanilla flavor. And it's interesting how vanilla is often thought of as the opposite of chocolate, and salt is oftentimes considered the opposite of sweet. Now, and what's fascinating, because I have a little bit of background, and I would call an amateurish interest in Chinese medicine and Ayurvedic medicine. And they talk about the perfect meal, which addresses all of these components: sweetness, saltiness, bitterness, right? Pungent flavor, like all these and texture and creamy, like all of these sensory experiences are required in order to give us to feel the sense of, okay, I've gotten everything I possibly could. Can you talk about why you added those 2 elements to the formula, and how that it's kind of like the oboes or something in a choir? You like, who thinks of going out and playing an oboe? But if you listen to an orchestra and there's no oboes, you're going to know that something's not quite right with that sound.
Yeah. So salt is one of the most valuable substances we have on earth. Our bodies need these minerals to function, and Himalayan salt is incredible, right? 70 plus different trace minerals. So that's reason number 1. But the real reason we use it in Protein Breakthrough is that it will actually amplify the sweetness. And that's something most people don't know. But if you have a sweet tooth like me and you play around in the kitchen, and I really got into raw desserts for a long time, and I used to just prepare all kinds of things because it was fun. The salt is a game changer. So the salt, again, I know it sounds bizarre, but salt amplifies sweetness, so that it just tastes better. And now the vanilla, and this is really the true food science. You want subtle things in the background, kind of what you're talking about with the oboe, and the vanilla adds that. The vanilla, in, again, trace amounts, adds a nice little background note that you can taste if you got a good palate. So those are the reasons for those compounds. And again, everything is just the best of the best. And we've, I think, achieved the best tasting, healthiest, plant-based meal replacement or protein shake ever, which I know is a bold statement. But Wade, talk about, and I was just, it was awesome. I was at the Biohome in Venice Beach, California with Wade. couple weeks ago when the finished labeled product arrived, and Wade was the most excited I've seen in a long time. So Wade, talk about what your experience has been using the product and what the feedback has been with the people that you know.
First and foremost, you have to understand something here. I've been searching for this protein for the last, it's now 17 years. Actually, it's even more than that. If I go back to being when a plant-based vegetarian, I started, it's literally 20 years ago this July. So I've been a plant-based guy for 20 years. I've been on a quest for the perfect plant-based protein powder for 20 years. Mm-hmm. And it's been a long, dark journey. There's been a lot of failed experiments. There's been a lot of bad shakes. I live on these things. Like, I don't have any other options. You got to understand, when I'm talking about this product, I'm sharing with you as an athletic vegetarian. I don't have other options. My options are limited. My options are limited to having soybeans, tofu, tempeh, some form of ground up nuts,
broccoli.
Right. Like, is anybody hearing those things and excited about eating that every single day of their life? No, of course not. Nobody is. Nobody's excited about that. Not anybody. There's nobody in the world is excited about it. I wasn't excited about it, and I don't blame anybody else for not being excited about it. So when it comes to protein breakthrough, it's like, I feel like the guy that was like searching for Shangri-La. He's lost in the wilderness for 20 years and he has all these crazy adventures. And finally, he stumbles into the enchanted canyon itself and looks in. And it's like, oh, here it is. And the product shows up here and I taste it. And it tastes better than I thought possible. I'm not a food science guy. I'm not like you that way. I'm not a quote unquote foodie. I'm happy to eat the same boring things all the time. I'm okay with that stuff. I don't have a sophisticated palate. I'm not a food genius. I'm a quality freak.
Yep.
I'm really into quality, but food has always been fuel for me, nothing more, nothing less, and something that I do socially more than anything else. But finally, with Protein Breakthrough, I'm like, oh my God, I feel like I'm eating like a chocolate bar or a really high-end chocolate dessert from a great raw food chef, which I've had before. But it's something that I can use and take every single day to support my physical goals. And concordantly, it feels like I'm cheating, having, I think, what's maybe one of the only purely plant-based products, which is everything in this thing is made from real food. There's no weirdness. There's no chemicals. There's no absorbers. There's no emulsifiers and excipients and funked out poor quality sweeteners. There's no cheap blended plants because it's a Me Too product. None of all this. It's an engineered meal replacement, a biologically engineered meal replacement product that contains all of the elements you need in combination with all of the flavorings that makes your body go, yes, packed into one container that all I need to do is to take out this thing and put it in water and it tastes amazing. And if I put it with nut milk, or if I mix it with fruit or bananas or whatever you like, it goes to the insane zone. And I walk out of my house laughing like a madman because I'm going, I can't believe it tastes that good. And now that might sound like hyperbole. And you're like, oh my God, he's going over the top. Wade's kind of ranting. Look, I'm just sharing with you from my heart that I've been looking for this for 20 years. Like this is legit. This is real. And what I'm most excited for, because as we talked about earlier in the podcast, we've always been oriented on the mission. I am an advocate for plant-based diets. I'm not a vigilante. I'm not something, but I do believe, and I think anyone could say, hey, you know what? If we had a little bit more plants in our life than something else, probably good. It's probably a good thing. I think most people can kind of say, yeah, I just don't really like all that stuff. Mm-hmm. But now we've got something that I like as an athlete, that kids are going to love as a treat, that mothers are going to be able to trust as something's healthy, as athletes are going to say it's an opportunity, as vegetarians are going to say, hey, this is something that I can support, and meat eaters, even total hardcore meat eaters, I invite you to try this and say, you know what? That actually tastes better than my whey protein, my casein protein, the current protein that I'm using to supplement my diet, that I'm getting sodium what the heckalate and frankenfiers inside of that product. Oh, those two things are something that's not in this. So it's not just what's in it, it's what's not in it that makes this so unique, so powerful, and so great for people to enjoy, to love, and to experience. And that's why I'm so excited about sharing this with the world. My only concern, and there is a legitimate concern, because I absolutely know it to the core of my soul that when people start using this product, they're going to love it and they're going to want it. And the problem is I don't even know how we're going to meet demand. I don't know how we're going to be able to. It's that our biggest issue is going to be the demand for this product, because every single person who has tried this product to date is going, I can't believe how good this product tastes, and I can't believe how it feels in my body compared to every other protein I've ever taken in my life.
And just to wrap up, I think a couple of key points. This could save you money on your grocery bill, improve your health, improve whatever your objectives are, which is awesome, right? Just if you're not having a protein shake, just replacing one meal with one protein breakthrough shake, that's a game changer. Probably going to cut an extra 500, 800,000 calories from your daily diet, and you'll feel great. It's super convenient. You can do it at work, do it in a car, throw it in a shaker cup, blend and drink. So that's point number one. Point number two, if you're already using a shake, give it a shot, because I think that the way you feel from this shake is awesome. Whey's not exaggerating. I think the essential fatty acids, the trace minerals, you feel it. When you're eating great food, there's an effect that your brain has. Your mitochondria get fed. You feel great. And that's one of these shakes where you drink it and you just pay attention to how your body feels. An hour later, 90 minutes later, you're like, wow, it feels good. So we've just released, I think by the time this podcast comes out, Chocolate Bliss, which is our first flavor. And we've already got the second one ready, which is going to come out, I think, early fall, called Berry Bliss. And Berry Bliss, I mean, when I tried the final samples, I was just blown away. Like, I'll be frank, it's exceeded. I had a goal in mind in terms of flavor with both of these products. We've exceeded that. I wasn't sure if this was achievable, but we've done it. And the Berry Bliss is just, yeah, I mean, it was just literally blowing my mind as I was drinking it. You throw half a cup of any fresh berries in there, or just drink it by itself with a nut milk. I like putting a little bit of ice and half a cup of whatever fruit you love. It's just insane. That's all I can say. So, Wade, any other final comments on Berry Bliss or Protein Breakthrough? Why should people go out and grab some right now?
Well, it's really simple. Every single product we've ever produced in our company, we've completely de-risked it. If you try Protein Breakthrough, you order a bottle, order two, my suggestion is stock up with whatever the offer is, because I don't know what we're going to do to handle the volume of this.
We're going to be selling out a lot. We're going to be selling out.
The demand is demand will be a problem. It's not is it going to be? I know plant-based proteins. I'm probably tried more plant-based proteins than anybody in the world. But here's the caveat. Here is the offset to what might be perceived as hyperbole in my enthusiasm for this project and this product. And that is, if this isn't the best meal replacement you've ever had in your life, I'll go up against Gordon Ramsay. I'll go against the greatest chefs in the world. I'll go against the top nutritional experts on the planet, gram for gram, taste for taste, mixability for mixability. If we don't beat everybody, if this is not the world heavyweight champion of proteins in general, I'm talking anything, put anything against it, put whey against it, put soy against it, put casein against it, put any plant-based combination that you want against this product. And if it doesn't blow it away, like total first round to the canvas knockout, not only are we going to give you your money back, we're going to send you a label to ship back the extra bottles that you should have ordered in the first place. Well, why can we do it? Well, we have a 17-year history of doing that. We're known as one of the greatest brands in the industry. Bioptimizers is well known by the who's who of the industry. They love the fact that we back everything up with a 365-day guarantee. We de-risk the entire thing. But on top of that, we have nailed it. And I just want as many people as possible to experience the sheer pleasure and joy that I have every time I make a protein breakthrough shake. In fact, I'm so excited. I'm going to get off this podcast and I'm going to go make one right now to celebrate because it's 20 years and we've won.
We've done it.
If no one ever bought this, it'd be great. The problem is everybody's going to buy it and you should too. Can't wait for you to try it. Rock it out. Proteinbreakthrough.com. Bioptimizers' greatest protein product ever created. Something that will change your life and the people that you love.
Go for it now.
At Bioptimizers, our mission is to fix digestion. And a cornerstone of digestion is gut flora. P3OM is our patented probiotic formula. In fact, we call it the Navy SEALs of probiotics. You see, strong proteolytic or protein digesting activity is paramount to having a healthy gut flora. And of course, P3OM provides that. The good news is, unlike weaker probiotics, P3OM survives the digestion process. What it does is it basically multiplies the good guys while protecting you against pathogens, or what some people call the bad guys. P3OM really helps to rebuild your digestion. And what that allows you to do is to maximize nutrient uptake, energy, and metabolism. To find out more of how P3OM can help you, go to www.bioptimizers.com.
Thank you for listening to the Bioptimizers Awesome Health Podcast. You can find more information at bioptimizers.com.